Hi friends, in this video we are going to see the last game of World Chess Championship Tournament 2021's last game, which was between Grandmaster Magnus and between Grandmaster Nepo. So Nepo starts with e4, Magnus plays e5, and then knight to f3, and then knight to c6, and bishop to c4, and we see the Italian opening in the board, and knight to f6, and then d3, bishop to c5, c3, d6, castling by white, and a5, rook to e1, and then bishop comes back to a7, and knight to a3, and h6, and knight to c2, and castling by black, and bishop to e3, bishop takes bishop, and knight takes bishop, and rook to e8, a4, bishop to e6, bishop takes bishop, and rook takes bishop, and after that queen to b3, b6, and then rook to d1, and knight to e7, and h3, and queen d7, and knight to h6, knight to h2, and after that rook to d8, and then knight to g4, knight takes knight, and pawn takes knight, and after that d5, d4, e takes on d4, e takes on d5, and rook to e4, queen to c2, and rook to f4, and g3, and that's a blunder, and d takes on e3, and then pawn takes on f4, and queen takes on g4, king to f1, queen to h3, and then king to g1, and after that knight to and then knight to f5, and then d6, and then knight to h4, pawn takes on e3, and then queen to g3, and then king to f1, and knight to f3, and queen to f2, and then queen to h3 check, and then queen blocks, queen takes queen, and knight takes the rook, and then rook takes the knight, and then rook takes the pawn, king to f3, rook to d2, rook to b1, and after that g6, and b4, pawn takes on b4, rook takes on b4, and queen to and then rook to a2, and then king to e4, h5, king to d5, rook to c2, and then a rook to b3, and h4, king to c6, and then pawn to h3. King takes the pawn and h2, and then a rook goes back to b1 and attacks the h1 box, and then pawn takes on c3. Rook takes on c3, and that's a check. And king takes on b6, and then rook to b3, and rook takes rook, and successfully Magnus promotes to a queen from a pawn. And then a5 and queen to e4, and then king to a7 and queen to e7, and that's a check. And then king to a8, and then king moves to g7, and then a rook to b5, rook to b6, and then queen to c5, and in this position white resigns and black is victorious. So thank you, friends. Let me see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye bye.